Today, I have Marc Johnson from LivePay with me. Thanks, Marc, for being on this episode of sorry, Business Inspires. I can't get my words out today. Business Inspires. I'm really excited to learn more about you and the business and how we can actually share those learnings with business owners and those people about to, or maybe thinking about starting their own business. So first of all, just give us an introduction to your business and, if you like, the problems you solve for your marketplace.
So I'm Marc Johnson, Managing Director of LivePay, based in Mansfield. We're a payroll bureau independently. So we take other companies' payrolls for them and process them. That allows us to utilise our experience and knowledge of the payroll space and our underlying technology, which we have built ourselves over the last 44 years. We are a second generation family run business. The business was founded by my father in 1980. Initially starting out at larger companies with various bits of software, initially in the sort of mainframe world. So typically users or customers had to have somewhere between 5 to 10,000 employees to actually use our payroll software. Gradually, as time sort of moved on and servers came into play, we moved into the internet world and were able to open that high quality of technology and make it available to smaller organizations. And really today, that's what we're consistently doing. And for us, it's about the service. That's what sets us apart in the payroll space and into the service industry generally. There's a lot of stigma about what service actually is or how bad it's normally delivered. So what I'm really trying to do is turn that on its head and make sure that when people hear LivePay, they know quality service, people that actually understand their problems and are able to help. A great example of that is I give my support team 8 seconds to answer the phone. So that's any customer, doesn't matter how big is the bill that you're paying. The guys there and the payroll experts, it's not just some random Joe receptionist I found, will answer the phone within 8 seconds.
Amazing. I love that goal. They say everybody in the business should have a number, and obviously yours is number 8. So that's
Yep.
really cool. So I guess you mentioned it's a second generation business. So I presume that was your parents, your father got involved setting the business up. So was it always your sort of idea to take over and run the business? Was that always sort of your plan?
No, I mean, in all grand plans like this, there was no plan as such. I think ultimately my parents they were very good to me and my brother, obviously, and didn't sort of force it on us. My brother had no interests in the business. He went off and set his own businesses up and did his own thing. I finished university and actually had a job to go somewhere else. Again, no particular, I won't say interest, but no particular forward desires to go, right, I'm going to do that. And it turned out that 3 people within the office got pregnant within quick succession, and the team at the time had about 14 or 15 staff. So taking 3 people out within one team, and I think the team that they all came out of, it was a team of like 5 or 6, so it was quite noticeable. And yeah, my dad came to me and he says, "Oh, I've got this problem. Do you fancy helping me for a bit?" And I was like, "Well, I've got this other job." He didn't, at the time, he didn't know what I'd been offered. All that he knew is, and he said, basically, "I've got this. This is the salary." And it turned out the salary that he was offering me was identical to the one that I was going to get elsewhere, but I only have to work 35 hours a week. So I was like, "Quid's in. I can do that." And then literally from there, it was only supposed to be for 9 months to cover this maternity leave. At the end of that 9 months, somebody left, and I just kind of took their job. And from there, it just sort of kept going, to be fair. And really, by the time I'd sort of done that first year, I'd kind of, I don't know if I got the bug for it, but I'd got a good understanding of what was happening, how it was supposed to work. And it was really about building my knowledge of payroll because my background and training isn't in payroll. I'm really an operations guy. I like to make businesses do business effectively. So when I was on my university placement, it was in cold storage, so giant fridges. And then, but I really enjoyed learning about the subject matter and delivering that service to the customers. And it's the same with payroll. And quite frankly, I think I could be doing anything, I could be selling pears. The logistics of getting the pears from the tree to the shop, packaged, all of that. That's what I like, and making sure that the customers are actually getting the value that they're expecting and the service that they want. But yeah, from there, like I say, the plan started to evolve. Probably once I'd been here for sort of 2, maybe 3 years, I'd progressed and effectively acquired my own department, and taken over the payroll operation side of things, so actually the day-to-day processing side of things. And we had about 160 payrolls at the time. And then we started sort of thinking, actually, well, what's going to happen next? Because at that point, my father was in his 60s, early 60s. They had conversations before about retiring and what their exit strategy was going to be. And I think they basically said, if the 2 boys aren't interested, then we'll sell it. They had looked and had offers on, from other companies wanting to acquire the business, but I think they wanted to sort of hold on to it just in case one or other of us, or both of us, decided that we were going to pursue it. And then it sort of became a bit evident that I was the last one to leave, and that I should carry on with it. So gradually we formulated a strategy, which was basically I would acquire more and more departments and more control until they had no control, and it just kind of gradually shifted. So in 2019, I was appointed as a director, and unofficially, sort of from that point, I was running the business, albeit the customers didn't necessarily know about it, because again, with family businesses, when you're handing it down the line, there's a lot of let's say pressure and preconceived notions that this guy's just got it because his daddy set it up for him, and he's just been given it because of his surname. And I've always taken it upon myself to prove that wasn't my case. I do know what I'm talking about. I have got the qualifications and the experience, and etc., etc. So I ran the company sort of through COVID. Ultimately, we were aiming for a retirement in the early 2020s, and then COVID happened, so we had to quickly pull the parents out of retirement to help us deal with that. And then 2022 came around, and we decided that actually it was time to make that switch formally. So my father retired, and I took over as managing director.
Brilliant. So what do you think during that transition to taking over running the business is sort of the hardest thing you've been through, and how did you overcome that?
There's been a few sort of difficult pieces to it, and they come in different ways. So one of the things I found early on was proving myself to the business, because we'd got staff that had been with us 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and I was coming in, and they could obviously see the path that was potentially in front of them. That this guy, early 20s, left university, parents have got the business, and now he's working here. Well, you're not going to be much of a wizard to figure out where that's going. But working with those people, and some of them were fine and were really happy, were good that I'd effectively, almost leapfrogged them and started managing them. But then other people were really reluctant. They were like, no, you don't have a right to tell me. You don't have the 30 years experience. And those kind of things brought some real challenges, and really had to toughen the skin a little bit, because ultimately you've got to say that no, the future of the business is with me. My parents aren't going to live forever. They want to retire. They want to enjoy retirement rather than be thrashing it out until the bitter end. But actually, through that process, we did lose people. Obviously, there's a natural attrition anyway, but there were a few people that, a couple in particular, that really couldn't deal with me taking over, because, like I say, I didn't have all of that experience, and I'd come in at the bottom and just start working my way up and gradually acquiring more and more. And when it came to the time of I acquired their department, that wasn't, that a couple of people didn't like that. So that was probably one of the toughest things.
So what do you think your biggest learning's been, as that sort of transition to managing director, owner, employer, what along the way?
The biggest learning bit is working with people, People can be the greatest asset and they can be the greatest hindrance. I've got 18, 19 staff members currently. I'm in the fortunate position that pretty much every single person that works here I picked or I was involved in their recruitment and selection process. But actually moving that forwards and handling those people and picking the right people is difficult. There's a lot of trial and error, but also when there's error, you need to make those decisions quickly that this person isn't right for you or your business. And I think that's probably been one of the hardest things in that initially I would say that there were people that would have made it 6 months, a year when I first started because I'd have given the benefit of the doubt and gone, oh, actually, it's just because they're new. And I'd have made excuses for myself. Whereas the more experience I've got, the more I've gone, no, you're never going to learn that because there's something, I won't say something wrong, it makes them sound like they're broken. But certain attributes and things that people have. So in a small business, for example, there's nowhere to hide. If you can't do the job, you can't just blame it on somebody else and go, yeah, that department or that person did it or something like that. You've a small team, you've all got to work together and you've all got to pull your weight. And particularly, understanding that there are people that just don't fit. So you do have to take those steps to, move those people on. And the more that you do it, the more prompt you need to become as well, because all you're going to do is you're going to annoy all of your staff that work really hard and are really loyal to you, and you're going to waste a load of your money. Because if you spend money on people that are not right for you, that money's gone. They're not going to give you any value for that. They're probably costing you more than they're generating in revenue. So yeah, move them on. But that's been a real tough lesson, and has come with trials and tribulations. But yeah, there's been a lot of that sort of stuff, I think.
And you've had some reasonably successful growth over the last few years. What do you put that growth down to?
Well, really, consistency and being persistent. So, as I say, when I first started working here, we had 156 payrolls is the golden number that I remember when I first started doing that. Because I've always been a details guy, so I like to know what's happening. The sizes of all the clients, how many employees we pay, how much money we make per client, all that kind of stuff. So I kept records, and gradually over the years, I built systems to do that. But we've had a number of different sort of strategies that have proved really successful. So we had a period through 2017, 2018, where we took on some real exponential growth. We went from the sort of 150, 160 clients up to the sort of 220, 250 pretty quickly within about 18 months. And in fact, within the 2016-17 sales year, we exceeded. Our sales guy sold his target plus a bit. He probably hit 110, 115%, something like that. And then I managed to secure a client where they were already an existing client, but they got bought by another company, and the other company was much larger. They had about 1,000, 1,100 employees in the UK, and we took over the entire group's payroll. They had a variety of providers for all these different companies. One or two of them were, what you term the big boys in the UK. They were the biggest providers. But we went in, stood our ground, and said, no, this is the service we're going to provide. And then we went and delivered it. We won the contract. That contract on its own was about 70 to 80% of our annual sales target. So we were closing into 200% of target in 1 year. And it sounds amazing when you're going, oh, he sold his sales target. Everybody must have been bouncing off the walls. But it actually goes the other way, because it's easy to sell. It's a lot harder to deliver. And you've made all of these promises to people. So you've got to pull your socks up and you've really got to make it happen. And you've got to do whatever it takes. And 2018, I spent a lot of time working evenings and weekends and filling in the gaps. But by consistently doing that and making steps to make sure that that isn't the new norm, that I'm not going to be the one that working 60, 70, 80, 100 hours a week, because you do see a lot of other business professionals that have made it. saying, "Oh yeah, all I did was work 100 hours a week, and now I'm a multimillionaire." Yeah, unfortunately, there was probably 1,000 other people that did 100 hours a week, and they just died of stress. You can land in one of two camps doing that. I would favour my odds of not landing in either and just keeping away from it. But going through that growth, provided you can see an end to it, and any growth period should be an up and then a plateau. Consolidate, think about what you're going to do next, prepare for the next up. You can't constantly have a ramp like that. So, and again, like I say, we had a couple of years after that where we plateaued and we continued growth, but it was a steadier growth. And then in the last sort of 18 months, in fact, leading up to very recently, we've just closed out a sales year at 130% of sales target, which again has brought some challenges and has, particularly for this year. And one thing that I've been really pleased about from the staff point of view is that people have got stuck in. Yeah, I've been paying them overtime. Yeah, they've been getting time in lieu and all the other bits. So they've not been doing it, for free. But they've all volunteered. So it shows, dedication for people as well. But again, they've got to see that end point, that this is a short-term goal, short-term problem that we're going to solve, and then we're all going to be better off for it.
Oh,
And really
brilliant.
that's the sort of thing. And a lot of it's about processes as well, continually fixing and making decisions day in, day out to move the things forward, become more efficient, provide better service. And it's all of those little decisions day in, day out that really change and scape and sort of change the landscape for you and how things are going to look. But we get people who actually come and look at some of the systems and technology that we have behind the scenes, and they are in awe of its existence. We are pretty unique in the UK. We're one of the smallest providers with our own software in the UK, but the technology that we have doesn't exist anywhere else. People have close sort of equivalents, but I'm yet to come across another provider, even against some of the larger companies within the UK, that actually has the level of automation and tracking and effectively an ERP platform that we've got. But it's all because of those small decisions day in, day out, to consistently and constantly move forwards and to never sit still. If there's a problem, solve it. Don't just palm it off. Oh, that's something for another day. We'll deal with that later. No, you've got to address it today, and you've got to keep looking forwards.
Wow, amazing level of, and again, that's showing the agility to respond quickly to what the market, i.e. your customers, are demanding. So
Yeah.
where do you see yourself being in 5 years' time? What's the sort of ambition moving forward now that you sort
I
of...
think the main ambition really is stability, and to keep that sort of growth going. So we'll reach a bit, plateau out for a year or so, then grow a bit more, and just kind of keep going in that direction. What at the moment I'm not particularly interested in is being the largest provider in the country. What I'm interested in is being the best, and the best doesn't mean big. What it means is getting that service delivered properly. If it's not being delivered properly, stop selling or slow down your selling, concentrate on your existing client base, because we're not transactional based. You go to the shop, buy a loaf of bread, customer's gone again until they've run out of bread. We're there month in, month out, week in, week out, providing that continual service to the customers. So if we look after the ones that we've got, it's just going to keep going. We don't have to worry about whether somebody else has got a different loaf of bread necessarily. If we keep our loaf nice and fresh constantly and looked after, people will stay, and they do. Our longest standing customer has been with us since 1982.
Wow. Yeah, it's brilliant. It builds that loyalty, doesn't it?
Yeah. So for the 5 years, what I'm really interested in is scaling that profitability more than anything, and making sure that we're able to deliver, good salaries for the staff that we've got, and that people are able to have good work-life balances. I don't want to be crashing them to death.
So if I was to give you £5 million, what would you do with that? Sort of, what would be the first thing you'd use that money for if you wanted to really dominate your market? I know you've already said you want to be the best, but if you had a chance to really dominate, what would be the first thing you'd do?
Well, the first thing to do in terms of dominating anything is to prepare. So it's all right going, oh yeah, 5 million quid. The easiest way you could go out to dominate the world would be to go on a merger and acquisition run and just try and buy anything you could. But actually, the best way is to go with organic growth, really, because you've grown within the bounds of your own business. You're not pulling in other businesses and other cultures. You, in my opinion, are much better to expand your own culture and let that grow. So, yeah, £5 million. What I'd be looking for is bringing in staff to shore up various areas of the business to make sure that we were ready for that next area of growth. And that happens naturally anyway. So, where I'm talking about, we get the plateaus. That's where we're working on that consolidation of moving the teams around a little bit, bringing in new roles, preparing for that next level of growth. There's no point growing as fast as you can without making that preparation. Otherwise, you're just going to kill everybody. You need to make sure you look after your staff first and foremost.
Brilliant. And that sort of segues nicely into my next question, was about sort of work-life balance. And you've mentioned that already during some of the previous questions. So, what sort of daily routine works best for you? How do you get that work-life balance?
Strict discipline more than anything. At times, it's not the best balance, but actually knowing that, I start at 9 o'clock in the morning, I finish at 5 o'clock, and making sure that I can keep as tightly as I can to that day. If there are things that come outside of there, I've got young children, so I still stop at 5 o'clock. If something needs to happen after 5 o'clock, I go and deal with the kids, make sure that I've spent time with them. They've seen me for the day. They know I exist. Because again, when we get to the end of the road and a bit morbidly, and we're sat in that hospital bed waiting for the light upstairs to go out, there's only those guys that are going to remember who you were. The people that are sat there paying the bills at the minute, yeah, they might have some thing. Oh yeah, that Mark from LivePay, he was a nice guy. But the people that really matter, it's your family.
Yeah.
So you've always got to put that first, even if that means that, once the kids have gone to bed, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, you then log in for an hour, or you come back into work on a Saturday evening, then yeah, fine. But make sure that you protect that time. You still go on holidays. You disconnect yourself when you go on holiday and try and make sure, as a business owner, you've still got to be available, but you make sure your team are trusted to get on with things and let them make the decisions. It's very difficult to relinquish control at times, particularly when you have worked at that ground level and then you're trying to step up because you know what everybody's doing and it's only going to take you 2 minutes to do it, but it's going to take 20 minutes to explain to someone else how to do it. Do you take the 2 minutes or the 20 minutes? In the long term, take the 20 minutes and then enjoy your evenings, your weekends, because when it comes down to it, that's the most important bit. You don't get another run through of life if you've not done it now. You've missed your kids growing up. You'll never get that back. There's always an opportunity to sell to another customer. Always an opportunity to raise another invoice. You can't raise your child again.
But that's great example of not having superheroitis. There are so many people that want to step in and solve every problem and not actually allow the people that you've entrusted to do it to solve it. As you say, that 2 minutes versus 20. No, I'll invest the 20 to make sure that person can do it. No, that's a brilliant learning for people to take away. So you mentioned earlier about wanting to be the best. It's not about the biggest for you. It's that very customer service centric model and being the best and not having rapid, but that steady control, get some growth, build down plateau, and so we don't sort of overtrade. So if you were, achieving that best, however you sort of measure that ambition, what would that mean to you?
Well, ultimately, that moves us into a more sort of premium space. A service is obviously what we're looking at is a premium service, and if we're able to deliver that well, that means that we can increase the value, therefore increase the profitability. And again, the whole purpose of a business is to keep that profitability. If you're constantly growing, and this is what I've seen over years, that growth also does that to your service level. Your service level will drop. You've got to be quick to react to it, and you've got to make sure you're there for the customers. So as we go through these pieces, I end up jumping in, talking to customers and going, bear with us, we've just got these changes, but I'm on it. And customers appreciate a little bit of candor, honesty, and integrity, and that you will sort it. And you actually have to go and sort it. You can't just talk about it. And people appreciate that, and they will stay loyal for that, even if there's a little bit of a blip every now and again. The fact that you're still there going, no, I'm here, I care, because it's so often seen that that managing directors, CEOs are often so high flying, pie in the sky. They have no idea what's happening down on the ground, or don't care. They just want the big check turning up. And if you can dispel those myths and just be there, somebody says, "Oh, I've got a complaint," or I'm not happy. Can a team leader or manager give me a call? And the managing director phones them, who they may have. I've got customers that I've probably never spoke to. I try to speak to as many as I can and being involved, but the reality is, there just isn't enough of my hours in the day to get to speak to everybody. But when there's a problem, don't be afraid to step in there, get the team involved. Don't do it all yourself. But yeah, keep working in that way. I think is really important, and that would allow us to grow and build that effectively a better revenue stream or more profitable business.
Okay, brilliant. There's a lot of talk around AI, depending on which industry you're in at the moment and the impact it might have. Do you think it's going to have any significant change in your industry?
Well, there's a lot of things with AI and what actually is AI. Obviously, computers and computer intelligence has been around for a long time. There is an awful lot of people currently labeling up AI as basic computer programming, which is not AI. And there's a lot of things, particularly in the payroll space, around how these AI machines are actually learning. And if you're going to interact with them on a professional capacity, and particularly using payroll, it's technically possible with the AI to feed them several payroll reports and ask it to tell you the difference between them. But you've just committed a GDPR breach. You have no idea where that data is going. You've just lost the trust of your customers because you've just spun it off into the ether. And you don't necessarily know whether it's going to get it right. It might get it right 99% of the time. But if you only got paid right 99% of the time, or if we only paid our customers right 99% of the time, we'd have no customers left. It's 99 point something, 9 recurring for seemingly infinite is the error rating that is expected of us. That there is just no errors. And it is about that, and whether AI is actually able to do that. Obviously, it reduces human error, but machine error is often more serious than human error because it can explode out of control very quickly. Whereas a human can usually, provided you've got sensible ones, stop when they go, this is going a bit wrong. This person shouldn't be paid £5,000 this month. Whereas a computer might not stop at 5,000. It might go up to 500,000 or 5 million. And suddenly you've got a big problem. And you might not even know that because you're trusting the computer. So yeah, there's a lot of things around there that I'll be very cautious with. But actually, AI does have benefits in other ways in terms of running businesses. So it's really good at helping you put together copy. So if you want to build put copy together for like your website or promotional materials, that it's really good for that, for giving you some different ideas, because the way in which, and this is something that I always find difficult, the way in which I speak is not the way in which you should write. Maybe that's just a symptom of where I grew up or whatever, but it isn't that, the two aren't necessarily the same. So actually having almost a third party or, somebody external, or, a computer to bounce those ideas off. And you can say, actually, I'd like some copy on X or Y, and it'll give you some ideas. Think, oh, I like that, but can you add this bit in, or can you take that bit out? And gradually it'll steer you in a direction. You've still got to do the work. You've still got to read it and make sure it fits. You can't just wholesale write it and send it off. But I think its role is really going to be around supporting rather than actual operations.
Cool. So what's your number one focus in the business right now?
Right now, we're currently heading through sort of around the top of one of those periods of growth that I mentioned a few times.
Yeah.
And we're going through sort of stability exercise at the minute. So we've had a period, particularly over the summer, where the service levels haven't been up to 100%. And we're now spending a lot of time, effort, and ultimately money in making sure that they are get back up to there. Now, our version of not at 100% and what the customers notice aren't necessarily the same, because we're so, we concentrate a lot on the service quality. We obviously focus on the things that are going wrong, and it's very easy for the team as well to just focus on the things that are going wrong. We're paying 25,000 people. We're looking after north of £1 billion worth of payroll for our customers.
Wow.
It isn't going that wrong. It is basically going in the right direction. Yes, there are a few problems here and there that need solving, but it's about making sure that the next step is that the employees feel that the support is there, that the difficult times will come to an end, and it'll go back to the times they remember when it was easier, and that we weren't getting to 5 o'clock and going, we need to do another half an hour. We were just shutting off at that point. We're doing a little bit of team expansion at the moment, adding some new roles in to help shore up the sort of operations, to make sure that the customers are better supported. That initially has started out with expanding our implementation team, because obviously as the payrolls come in, that their workload balloons. Now all the payrolls that have gone through that sort of peak are now pretty much all live. We've got a few sort of still left to go through later on in the year, but not too many. That load is then going to move into our bureau team, so the main processing function. So we've shored up the implementation team. We've now got to work on the bureau team, and just constantly working through on that and addressing those problems and making sure that everybody's on board and that everybody's thoughts and ideas are felt.
Brilliant. So just remind us, Mark, what is the problem that you can help people with right now in terms of any issues that they've got?
The real big thing is making sure that your payroll, you're getting the service that you expect from your payroll and that it's at the highest level. So if you're not getting that from your payroll provider at the minute, that's where we'll come in. We'll look at the service that you've got and we'll make sure that you're getting the right service at the level it should be. And that's what LivePay is all about. It's really getting that service with payroll professionals. We're small enough to be agile to meet the needs of our customers, but we're also large enough that if you come to us with 2, 3, 5,000 employees, we can deal with that. It's really a broad range of things. So that's the main bit for us at the moment. Is
brilliant. And if people want to find out more about what you do, what's the best way that they can find that out?
Best way to do that is pick up the phone and talk to us. If you phone us up on the office number, you'll go straight to our support team. Perfect example of that 8-second waiting time. And that's the person you first speak to is a payroll professional. There's nothing, there's no better sales piece than that. But there's all the usual stuff. We can provide demonstrations on the system and the capabilities. We've obviously got the website, which will provide more background information to kind of support you and help you make decisions from there, and give a little bit more detail about what the service technically involves, and how it's delivered.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Mark. There's been some really, really good learnings there. I've made quite a few notes as we've gone through myself there, and it's that transition from in the second generation family that you've talked about into that leadership around that customer centric service and getting that high standard. I love that 8-second rule goal. I have actually heard you talk about that before in the past, and it's great that you still believe and you're passionate about that. So thanks for your time this afternoon, Mark. That's been absolutely brilliant.
No worries. Thank you very much, Rod. It's been great.